Hey everyone. So today is community hall. We are starting 2 hours earlier, and I know the last couple weeks have been really sporadic in terms of how we've been doing these. But I will go through updates, talk to you about why we were kind of shoddy with the community halls the last couple weeks because there was just so much going on in terms of what was happening. So right now, I felt the need to do a community hall, but my schedule is pretty busy and I have meetings the remainder of the night. So while I have a quick break in between meetings, I thought this would be the good time to catch up with everyone, right? Because there's been a lot going on, but not as much communication as usual. So I wanted to, provide some updates and communicate with everyone what's happening. So I'm going to start with the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act because I feel like I need to go that far back to get to where we are right now. So with the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act, we've done a tremendous amount of lobbying in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. However, in the Senate, because of the Senate races, we know Senator McSally, who is one of the people on the Senate Armed Forces Committee, lost her seat. And we don't know who Republicans are going to put in that seat because I doubt Mark Kelly is going to get that seat being an astronaut. But it is, I mean, anything's possible. And I don't know that Republicans will give that Senate seat up to Democrats. So I don't know who in January is going to be on that committee. And I believe there's one other person who lost their seat on that committee. So the way a bill works is for it to be alive, it has to make it through a committee. After the bill makes it to the committee, it goes to the majority leader. So in this case, Mitch McConnell. So if there is not enough support, and I'm not talking about public support, I'm talking about congressional support. If there's not enough congressional support, then what'll end up happening is Mitch McConnell could just block it because he feels like blocking it because that's the kind of human being he is. So what presents an obstacle is what's going to happen to that seat and how, what's going to happen with Mitch McConnell and his level of power on that committee. That determines the viability of the bill being a live bill. So we're not going to know any of that until January 20th, when the new administration comes in, and January when the Senate's coming in and, all of that. So anyway, basically what that means is like, there's not much more for us to do other than keep having conversations with the people we're having conversations with, but most of them already signed on and supported it. So it's just waiting on these new seats to see who's going to be where and where the power dynamics are going to lie to understand the next part of the lobbying strategy. So anyway, the thing with that is we're not going to know that until January. All right, so that's where we are with that. Now getting into the Fight for Our Freedom campaign. That's where we are now. That's what I have up on the screen. And I'm going to go over that with you is you're seeing our campaign. Obviously, we went to Washington, D.C. So I know that that's probably like, hey, what's going on here too? So what I want to talk about for the campaign is, for obvious reasons, I couldn't say anything, right? So the part of that was for a lot of reasons, right? Like the families and their security matters, and really figuring out what was the best course of action. So, you might have been seeing in the news over the last couple of days, the stories are all over the news. And that was trying to figure out what the best course of action would be to, what would be the best messaging that we can have to really propel these stories. So what I'm going to show you is just kind of like what our value system is, and not only our values, our core values, how we operate like the organization, and I'm going to go over cultural diversity and allyship, because allyship and cultural diversity is what helped us get here. So I want to have that conversation because we have the conversation in the movement. It's in our content, but what I'm learning over the last month or so is how important it is to have this conversation publicly. So I want to start with our Instagram page. If you don't follow us, Instagram/MST movement or at MST movement. So just like mstmovement.org, or MST movement for Facebook, for Twitter, it's all the same. So MST movement. So I want to go over, like, here is our, I don't know what you call them, your profiles part, but I want to talk about pride. So pride, one of the reasons this is so important to me is because, oh, that's a quote, goes by itself. One of the reasons this is ultra important to me is because, actually, can you guys even see that? It looks so small. Let me see if I can make myself smaller. Yeah. So pride, one of the reasons it's something that, you know, we celebrate in the movement is for the diversity and also, you know, supporting marginalized communities that have been through, you know, so, well, now that we saw that part, um, so this is, you know, our Instagram. And one of the main things that I wanted to go over with that was, so pride has been something we've supported, right? There's the unknown male, which gets into male survivors. And if you look closely, there's diversity in that photo, right? Like it's all different ethnicities. And you know, we're talking about not only female sexual assault survivors, but we're talking about men too and what their stories are. And this is also why our arts and culture program is the way it is, right? Like very provocative, very out there. So you can see the diversity in our messaging, right? That's just a core value that the organization, that we have in the organization. And then here's females, but it's same thing, all different ethnicities, right? All different backgrounds. And, you know, when we're doing anything in the organization, the idea is to celebrate diversity, to celebrate culture, to celebrate different people's backgrounds and what that means, right? And this is part of our, even when we're talking about education and statistics and what's happening surrounding, you know, retaliation rates, you know, what's happening regarding suicide, homelessness, like we talk about that, right? And when we're looking at the organization and you're looking at our Instagram, if we just scroll through these photos, you can see the diversity in storytelling, diversity in fashion, diversity in ethnicity, religion, artwork. Like the whole organization is very diverse. There's people that are modest and professional. There's people that are just cultural, their backgrounds are cultural. You know, here's some city cops with the Marine Corps. Like everyone is just diverse. There's different backgrounds. And here's in this photo, hold on. Actually, let me go over this with you guys because this will definitely go over where I'm trying to get with this conversation. Cultural diversity is really important. And, you know, as many of you know, the Fight for Our Freedom campaign is regarding two female Marines. This, I love this photo for that. So on the left-hand side, we have Corporal Teu, and on the right-hand side, we have PFC Celeste Largo. Behind them, so the infinity letters, right, that you see in the middle, those are letters that I've been writing to them in the brig, and their families. So then behind that is the artwork on the aura wings for each one of them, and the artwork symbolizes their cultural backgrounds that motivated them to enter the United States military, and their heritage and their culture that put them in the military and ultimately went through sexual violence connected my own experience as a female Marine to their experience, my fight for justice personally, to, you know, developing the military sexual trauma movement, to now being able to talk to them and tell them, you know, what's the scoop, like what's actually happening. Because there's no 411 on that. There's no like manual what you do from this point out, you know, like when generally when if you get into the brig, your mental health decline pretty rapidly. So I want to talk about that, right? So in America, we incarcerate here. I'm going to lower this for a second because this is a really important conversation. All right. In America, we incarcerate 1/3 of all the world's women. And we also have the worst, like the most people incarcerated in the world. So that's why we have what's called a mass incarceration. So mass incarceration is basically punishment um, for everyone, right, who does something that's a crime. But also, what we know about mental health and mental health decline is that when people are going through trauma, they'll generally go through substance abuse, and then from there they will spiral downwards. Right? It's a common. Anyone who has PTSD, anyone who works with the veteran community, anyone who um anyone who has that kind of response, right? There's mental health issues that are underlying with the behavior, and I would even suspect, right? Like, I'm not for sure, but this is what I would suspect is that probably like 95% of the people that have committed a crime probably have some kind of underlying mental illness. So, for violent crime is what I would say, has like some kind of underlying condition. When it comes to, nonviolent offenses, I think a lot of those become more systemic and money driven. However, that's another conversation. So I'm going to get back on track with where this conversation needs to go. So getting back to, how do I put this? So getting back to where we were, because now I'm forgetting where we were, if I'm honest. um, yeah. So hate when this happens. I know in mass incarceration and mental health. There we go. Okay, sorry. I just have so much on my mind. So for mass incarceration, a lot of times we criminalize people with mental health conditions, and we punish them. And one of the things that I can say that I know for sure as fact from personal experience, personal knowledge, is when someone goes through sexual violence and after sexual violence ends up in the brig and then ends up in solitary confinement, there's a process that happens to someone, and that's not a publicly known process. So someone goes through sexual assault. If they report it, they're generally getting a rape kit done. So not only were they violated, but now someone has to touch them right after they were violated to do testing, right? To test a rape kit, you basically got to get naked. And while you're going through trauma, you're in the hospital getting a rape kit done. Then not only are you dealing with that, but then you're going through an investigation after you're going through trauma, and you feel like you're being raped again. Like it feels like elongated because you didn't want to be in this place. You don't want to have this conversation. You don't really think these people are there to help you. Like, it's just scary. It's scary, that whole process, and it's painful. And then you're also like, when you're dealing with this, and now like doctors are looking at your genitals, like investigators are standing there with you. Like when the Marine Corps, when I reported that I got raped, the sergeants that I reported to called NCIS, and NCIS brought a female investigator, and they made her bring me to the brig. Like, they didn't call 911. They didn't have anyone check me right away. Like, they made her take me to the brig and take me like 2 hours to a special naval hospital somewhere in Virginia. And when I went through that, and I got to that hospital, and like they did the toxicology report, they did everything with me. When I got back from there, they made me do a questionnaire, and then I got thrown in jail, like because I got root. So I'm gonna explain because this shit is, it hurts me to tell you this. Like, I'm thinking about myself and what I went through, so I can help you understand what these families are going through. Because the reason we're having a conversation on cultural diversity and allyship is everything right now. Everything. So I need you to understand where I'm coming from and what I'm feeling, because I can speak on this, right? And I can speak on it having gone through this. And I can speak on it from my experience. So I'm in a unique position right now at having gone through this cycle of trauma. I know I can foreshadow what's going to happen. and what the options are at each point. So because I've lived this and I've survived it, and I've thrived after. So the where I am today is very helpful and meaningful for the families that we're working with. So right now there's it's a very important bond to me, right? A very important connection. And the reason I want to make that clear is because um my entire life going through all the pain that I've been through, there's plenty of times I didn't think it was worth it. And for me, being at this point and being to see that my pain is meaningful to help other people through this, it's everything to me, everything. And I think it's important to understand where we're going and the direction we're moving in. And I know because things are changing right now for everyone, it's a lot, right? Like we were working on the one campaign, we put a pause because now we're working on another campaign. Both of them have very core similarities. We're lobbying on both fronts. We're doing politics. Like we have a lot going on as an organization. So we're balancing everything out with the time horizons we have, where the deadlines are, and that's how we're managing everything to the best of our capability. So while I'm getting into this, for the families that we're working with and what is going on is it's painful. It's painful for me to go through it. It's painful for me to talk about it, and it's painful for me to um just go through it, just live through this. But I have these points of deep gratitude that I can be a support. For these this situation. Like it's not a situation people find themselves in. It's one I would find myself in. It's one lots of minorities would find themselves in. Lots of women and minorities find themselves in this. So that's something that I want to make clear. And this storyline that's happening right now is you're getting to witness in real time, in the public eye, what is happening to families that are going through this right now. And this is the first time in the public eye that you get to see the disparate treatment of military law. It's not like American law. So the way women and minorities, okay, this is why I feel like it's so hard for me to communicate history to politics to cultural dynamics, right? History, minorities have always been disenfranchised, right? In many different capacities. Native American people who live throughout the United States were pushed to a certain region, and Jenna forced to another region, and through the U.S. government, and that's pain points, right, for cultures, because like why would you ever trust the government after that? And you go through these kind of experiences and these traumas, and they start to shape how you think about the world and how you feel about it. And those pain points are difficult and challenging. So I think what I'm getting at is learning about all the different cultures we have and learning about everyone's background, right? Whether someone is transgender, whether someone is gay, whether someone is straight, whether someone's asexual, intersexual, like whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Like none of that matters, right? What matters is us coming together and us doing what is right, what is just to our greatest capability. And that is where we're at right now. And that's what's at the forefront. So when I was talking about cultural diversity and why it's important, is I know that when you see me, I look like a white girl, I talk like a white girl, like I fit in like a white girl completely. I get it, right? But also like I'm Janelle Marina Mendez. So this is one of the conversations I was having today that I think really ties in, actually a couple of conversations I had today. So like if you see my name, Janelle, it sounds like Michelle, it's girly, it's very white, right? With a little twist, with a little flair. And then the rest of my name is Mad Spanish. So like my parents, right? Like obviously I'm white and white passing, so my parents are going to name me a white name because I can pass as a white girl. I know I'm white passing. I've always passed as white. Always. Right? Well, okay, let me rephrase that. So the struggle that I've gone through with my culture and my own upbringing and my identity for my parents' survival and for what they wanted for their children, right? My parents, with what they had at the point that they were at, what was best for me was to be white passing, pass with a white girl name, and fit in with the white kids in the white school I was going to so I would get a really good education. So I would be here one day. Well, I don't know that they would want me to be right wing conservative, but here, like if I was a right wing Christian conservative, everything I'm not. With the education, I got one of the best educations. I'm gonna say that a public school has to offer. 100%, 100%. Been to different schools in different parts of the country, and the best education that I ever received was definitely in Westchester County, New York. Anyway, so I know that I'm white passing, right? But like I have a cultural upbringing that's not white at all. Like we don't eat potatoes and what do you call it? There's like cabbage, like it's real plain. I don't know what it is, but like it's one of the most plain foods ever. But that food, and it's a white people food. And like they put salt and pepper and it still tastes like nothing. But like I'm like, how the hell does this happen? And like you come to me like, and my life, if I'm gonna pick flavor, right? Flavor, I want spicy and sweet, and spicy and sweet, and I want just the right like back and forth when I'm eating. Like I need some tingle in my I need a little bit of my fight or flight to go off. I don't need it like a PTSD episode, but like just let me know it's there. Like, and I enjoy eating my food like that. So I love different spices and I love strong flavor, right? Other than olives. I think olives, I have a palate for like everything. And I love food from different countries. Like what my favorite, like if I could eat a different culture's food, yeah, a different culture's food at least once a day. Like one of my meals, I might, be in the mood for a certain part, for a couple days. But if I could try every ethnicity that there is food, I would. I just love flavor. So I grew up in a household with powerful flavors in our food. And so then like, you're like white people don't do that. I look white, I get it, but like you go to a white person's house and it's like takeout, or if they do cook something, it's like super bland. Super bland. So there's just cultural, like that might seem subtle to someone, but that's huge when you're a kid because food is everything. You eat all day. Um, so your cultural background just says a lot about like how you grew up and what your struggles are. And what I think is important about what we're doing right now is culture and allyship in marginalized communities, right? Because marginalized communities are probably the most cultural, which is mind blowing to me that happens. But um, culture and diversity is what pulls us together for innovation and to be forward thinking and to move forward. So like for us to develop the way that we need diversity for innovation. Like there's a marriage between diversity and innovation. And there is also a need of unity and togetherness. But that unity and togetherness, how do I put this? It's a oneness that lets us all know we're together. But we're also individuals who have individual storylines. So we're connected, but we're also separate, one and the same being. Like it's a spiritual concept, but I really like it. And it's like a wave and a particle. I mean, a particle moving as a wave or like moving independently. So what I'm saying is, yeah, I'm like, see how I'm connecting the dots? Yeah. So anyway, getting back to this is when we're looking at what we did to accomplish the Fight for Our Freedom campaign, It took a lot of work. A lot of work. And a lot of people. And you know what? This is something else I should tell you guys, because a lot of you are new too. You know, like I know a lot of you are new. So, let me go to and let me see if you can. Yeah, let me make this bigger. That's better for you guys. Okay, so I want to get, now that we're speaking about culture and I'm giving you background and identity, so you understand. Um, right. So I went through military sexual trauma. That was me in the Marine Corps. Can you guys see that? Like, let me see. Yeah, you could see that. That's this here, right? So this is me, Mia Madras Blues. Like, so when I see this photo, it's like a part of me is proud of me for for making it through boot camp. Boot camp was horrible. No, it was hard. It was just hard, man. I don't that shit is not like, it's not feathers. But what'll happen is, you know, the whole Marine Corps experience was just, I don't know how women do that for like 20 years. They're like, holy like shit, man. I feel like your feminine essence just gets murdered, you know, like your soul and your spirit, like everything it means to be a woman. And that's what I meant. Like I felt so, like I remember taking this picture in boot camp. And when I took this picture, um, I was like, I was proud. I was proud. At that point, I was like, I was terrified for my life too. Like I was scared. I was 17. Let me just tell you, I was 17. So the reason why I say this is because like I was not 29, you know, I was oh, actually, so when I enlisted and when my senior year, I skipped 11th grade. So I was 16 when I decided to enlist, and when I was like signing the paperwork and I was going through an emancipation process with my parents. So like I had to get emancipated to join the military because I was underage. And yeah, so anyway, like it's so crazy. So what I'm trying to tell you is I was young. Like, do you understand what an emancipation is? Like, most people in America are 30 or 40 years old and still live with their moms and dads. Like, I left my house and I was signing my life away at 16 years old. That's what I felt was the best decision for my life, despite the wonderful, miraculous education that I got at the school that I went to with wealthy white people. So my best option, because I didn't grow up in a healthy household. I grew up with dysfunction, and that dysfunction came from my family trauma. And it's not only my family trauma, but it's heritage and culture. It's my cultural heritage. So it's generations of trauma in my family line that have caused that dysfunction. And a lot of it comes from oppressive treatment. So whether I'm white passing or not to you, whatever that means, like for you, um, I lived, I live the minority struggle. That's been my whole life. And I've had to teeter back and forth. And what's been the hardest responsibility for me, um, being in this position, is knowing when to use my privilege for the greater good, to use my white skin, to use my body, to use what I have to bring other people forward, no matter what that means. And I want to explain this because I know what the pain of this is like. I know it. And I know what that means. But on the other side, there's points where you got to use privilege to create awareness, to open up the door for other people. And then you got to know when to step back and put those other people forward. And the reason this means everything to me is we're at that point in the movement's evolution to do that. And that's where the changes are coming from that I think everyone's struggling with, right? It's because I think we're so used to seeing, like, how do I put this? We're used to seeing white women in power, right? Or and barely at that, like not even at the level that we should. Um, but like, I mean, women, period, like the whole everyone. But like when I'm thinking about what we've seen, we have this ideology, and I feel like people kind of look to me as me being the face all the time. And for me, that was always a means to an end. Like I was gonna do what I had to do to help the people who need help. And that's been the whole point of the movement. So now we have these families that are in a position where their stories need to be told. So at this point, um, it's making sure that they come forward and that they're able to tell their stories. So that's what's important to me right now with what we're doing in the direction that we're going in. I just haven't used this, so sorry. All right, so that's pretty much what I wanted to tell you.